From chaos to calm, we are talking about effective consequences for managing problem behaviors in the classroom tonight. I am so excited to be able to come to you live with this topic. This is one topic that is always tends to be a fan favorite, I will say, every time that I've gone live and shared on this. So I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. I first want to know who's in the room because I was talking since, of course, I'm streaming on multiple different platforms as always. And so not only am I on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. And so I was asking some of the TikTok behind the scenes viewers what particular grade level they taught. So if you're just now joining in, I would love for you to give me a 1 in the chat if you teach elementary. And I want you to give me a 2 in the chat if you teach secondary or middle school. Who's in the space with us tonight? We have Brittany's a 1, Naomi's a 1. Kindergarten, Brittany, oh, so fun. I always love coaching kindergarten teachers. Kindergarten is also such a fun time to visit. I love visiting kinder classrooms. Okay, so it looks like elementary is holding it down. I saw someone earlier said they teach 5, 6. But do we have any secondary in the building? I'm not seeing any 2s. So with that said, you've shared a little bit about what it is that you particularly teach, what grade band. I want to hear what content area you teach, because I know someone earlier shared with me that they teach all content areas. Even when I think about my certification was generalist. So I could teach across all content areas, but I spent majority of my time teaching math. So I would love to know, what content area is it that you specialize in? Naomi teaches them all. Let's see. What other content areas? Do we have any math, ELA people? Do we have any social studies teachers in the building? I would love to know that. Writing teachers, a lot of all content areas. Ooh, that's a lot. I like to specialize in one particular area, but bless y'all. That is amazing. So with that said, even some Montessori in the building. That's awesome. With that said, I always love to introduce myself. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I always love to know, are you a first time tune in audience member? You've never been on a live with me before? If that's you, give me a 1 in the chat. If you have been on a live with me before, give me a 2 in the chat. I want to see who are the OGs, who are the new people. While you're giving me your 1 or 2 in the chat, I want to introduce myself, especially for those of you who are 1s. My name is Tierney. I am a classroom management and culture consultant. I specifically specialize in helping K through 8th grade teachers serving in Title I schools manage their class, just to put it very simply. So with that, if you discover me online, then it's probably because you came across one of my classroom management videos, whether it's me doing a funny reaction to a particular video, or me actually giving some behind the scenes of me coaching a teacher, or even me sharing out some of my classroom management tips and best practices that tend to go against the grain. You are here because you know that is my expertise. So now that you're familiar with who I am, what it is that I do, I want to share with you too, like, this is my 10th year in education. So in the fall will be the start of year 11 for me. I have served specifically in the grade levels where I coach teachers. So I have been an elementary teacher before. I have been a middle school teacher before. And then I left the classroom in 2021 in order to move into leadership. Once I earned my Texas principal's license, I moved to becoming a dean. I've also served as an assistant principal, and I'm so excited to be able to share my best practices with you. So we're going to hop into tonight's conversation. Specifically, what we are talking about is, again, from chaos to calm, effective consequences for managing problem behaviors in the classroom. Do y'all like my shirt? YouTube actually gave this to me, y'all. So if y'all don't follow me on YouTube, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, you need to be. I actually got this shirt from YouTube. Super cool, I know. And for those who really know me, you know that before even I ever touched TikTok, I was on YouTube back in 2015, sharing teacher tips, even doing some vlogs of my classroom and everything. So those are the real OGs, those who know me before even the TikTok. So with that said, let's get into a little overview of what you can expect from tonight. I'm going to be first sharing like what it takes for you to promote appropriate student behavior through implementing the 3 R's to effective logical consequences. Secondly, I'm going to be talking about how to implement the 3 types of logical consequences to use in your classroom in order to increase the number of students actually meeting your expectations. And lastly, I'm going to share with you ultimately why logical consequences aren't enough and what you need to do in addition to that and instead. So if you're ready for tonight, you want me to hop right into the content, give me a ready in the chat. If you are ready, give me a ready in the chat. Ireland, we have folks from Ireland here, y'all. Let's see. My TikTok behind the scenes crew. Let's give some hearts on the screen. That helps to push this video out to even more folks, so even more people can be helped. Hey Joyce, how are you? I would love it if you could give me some hearts on the screen so that we can get this video pushed out to more people. Yes, we're almost at 1,000 likes, y'all. That is so awesome. Hi, Jackie. Yay. I love it. Hey, Zach. All right, y'all. We're almost there. Like, keep going. Like, let's share the love. Don't keep it to yourself. Pass this along to other people. So let's first talk about exactly what it takes to promote appropriate student behavior through implementing the 3 R's to effective logical consequences. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the 3 R's. I want you to make sure that you are taking notes because I am always going to ask you in the end what it was your major takeaway. So it's important that you are actively engaged here with me tonight. I'm sure you're multitasking and I don't want to take that away from you. Even though science says that people really can multitask, you think you can multitask, but you actually can't. You're actually like slowing down your effectiveness. But I won't get into that tonight. Anywho, I know you're probably doing multiple things. You might even be listening to this on your drive home, especially if you are out west in the Pacific Standard Time. But what I would love for you to do is to take notes so that as I recap things and ask you questions, you're able to share back out with me. Sometimes I even give away prizes on these lives, so you never know. So the first R when we're thinking about logical consequences is respectful. So it's very important that your words and your tone of voice communicates respect for the students in your classroom. The focus should always be on behavior, not the child's character. Okay, I want to repeat that last line because that's super critical. The focus should always be on behavior, not the child's character. So we are addressing behavior, not the child's character. That's more than enough that you have received tonight. I could end the live right now. I'm going to keep going, but that's super important because sometimes when our emotions especially get involved and we start feeling salty, we start to attack the kid's character instead of just focusing on the behavior. And that's a big no-no, right? Guilty, done it before, right? But you live and you learn. And when you know better, you can do better. So that's the first thing. What is the first R? Repeat that back to me in the chat. I want to see who's already been paying attention. And I already see some questions coming in on the chat, and I want to flag for you. You need to stay to the end if you want specific questions answered. I always provide an opportunity for Q&A at the very end. So if you want a burning question answered from yours truly, you need to stay to the end because that's when I'll be answering them. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Naomi. Y'all are with me. Okay, we see folks tracking. Sabrina, nice job. Y'all, we need to get this to 1,000 likes. What are y'all sitting at 994 for? Come on. Heart. Even better if you share this with people. Press that little share arrow. Yeah, because I'm going to bring the fire. What you going to do? I'm doing my part. What you going to do? Okay. Thank you so much. Y'all made it. So we got the first R. The second R is related. Okay, related. So what does that mean? That means that the consequence should be directly related to a student's actions. Okay, the consequence should be directly related to a student's actions. So that's what the second R is. We talked about respectful. Now we talked about related. Again, who's tracking with me? What's our number 2? What's our number 2? I feel like my elementary teachers are really kind of showing some of y'all up a little bit because they're very much engaged. Where are y'all at, secondary people? Are y'all off task? You know, like how y'all get mad at your students for being off task? Are y'all off task tonight? Oh, man. Middle school. Okay, Sabrina, hold it down. I see you engaged. Yes, related. Golden Goodness. What a beautiful username. Love that. Okay, so the second R is related. And the third R, the final one, okay? The final one. If you're ready for the final one, type a yes in the chat. I want to see who's actually ready for the last R. And then we're going to move into the next section. Everything that I'm sharing tonight builds upon each other. So it's really critical that you are staying to the end because I don't want you to miss a piece of this. A lot of things that I share too on lives are things that you can take with you and implement in your class as quickly as tomorrow as well. So I want you to receive great value. Beth says yes. Jackie said yes. Naomi said yes. Sabrina says yes. So the third R is realistic. So the consequence must be something that your students can reasonably do. And listen to this part, that you as the teacher can actually follow through on. That's critical because y'all's follow through game be weak a lot of the time if I can just keep it 100, because that's the only way I know how to keep it. If you can't keep it 100, you're going to have to peace out. But like the consistency is very much lacking. So when we think about the third R being realistic, yes, it needs to be reasonable for students to do, but it also needs to be something that you know you can consistently follow up on, follow through with, remain consistent with. Okay, so number 3 is what? What's number 3? Golden Goodness. If you are just now tuning in, please stay to the end, and that is a space where I will answer any and all questions. Realistic. Y'all got it. Okay, I see the same names like Naomi, Jackie, Sabrina, and I see some lurkers in here. Y'all need to get engaged. Hello. Kira, I see you. China, Carolyn, Miller, Jennifer. Y'all need to be engaging with us in the comments, not just tuning in. Come on. All right, y'all. So what I'm going to do now that I have shared that and we've recapped everything, okay, we know the 3 R's. What in the world? Is that really like, that sounded very much Texas from me to say that. Very much. Okay, so now that you know the 3 R's to logical consequences in the classroom, let's talk about the 3 types of logical consequences in the classroom. Like, who has ever gone through a logical consequences training? If you've gone through one of those before, give me a 1. If you've never really had a professional learning experience, a professional development opportunity, a training on logical consequences, give me a 2. I need to see who's in the room tonight, right? So who has 1 experience before, who has never experienced before? Yes, I have experience. 2, never had experience. Wow. Okay, so majority of y'all are new to this, okay? So this is very popular. Like I said, like this training is one that has been requested from me a lot, and I have done it. Maybe this is like my 3rd or 4th time doing this particular training. And of course, this isn't like a complete full training, but this is, you know, my version of it, my in a nutshell version of it for live. And so with that said, this is very popular. It's not anything that I made up. It's from a resource called Responsive Classroom. Okay, so you can check that out. I do support the resource. I don't support a lot of resources, but that is one I do support. So definitely check that out. It's called Responsive Classroom. And in a nutshell, I'm giving you like cliff notes tonight. Okay, So when we think about logical consequences that are also popular, that people talk about a lot, there's essentially three types. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to implement those three types in your classroom in order to increase the number of students who are meeting your expectations. If that sounds good, type ready in the chat. If you are ready to learn how to implement the three types of logical consequences to use in your classroom to increase the number of students meeting your expectations, give me a ready. I ate Chick-fil-A today. I love Chick-fil-A, and I always get a lemonade. I wish I had more lemonade, but I'm just here drinking this Aquafina water. Okay, so three types of logical consequences, since I see you're ready. The first is reparation. Okay, write that down. Got it? Reparation. The second one is loss of privilege. Okay, loss of privilege. And the third is space and time. The third is space and time. Okay, so as we're thinking about those three types of logical consequences, I'm going to break each one down. Let's talk about reparation first. This gives students the opportunity to fix or like clean something. So essentially, think of it as an opportunity to reinforce that, hey, we all make mistakes. And when we make those mistakes, we should actually fix those mistakes, right? So here's an example. If a student accidentally knocks over a stack of papers, when we're thinking about the logical consequence reparation, the teacher has the student simply pick up the papers from the floor and put them back in the stack, right? Let's say you are at your small group table and you have told them 80 million times to stop coming up to you at the small group table and interrupting while you are working with small group. But little Johnny decides to come over to that small group table and try to interrupt you while you are at small group. And in the process of him doing that, he knocks over a stack of papers. Now, if he wasn't over there when you told him not to be, the papers wouldn't have even fell on the floor. But unfortunately, little Johnny is struggling to meet expectations. So he came over there and boom, knocked all your papers off on the floor. Your gut reaction might say to do something else. But when we're thinking of a logical consequences and specifically a reparation, what we would want to do is ask Johnny to pick up the papers that he knocked over while he was over at small group when he shouldn't have been, and then return back to his seat. Okay? So what is the first type of logical consequence? Who is with me? First type. Naomi, Brittany, Jackie, Beth, Jenna, Shannon, Linz, you with me? Linz is with me. Yes, reparation. Reparation. Nice. Okay, great. You ready for number two? I'm about to dive into number two. Number two. Okay, so the second type of logical consequence is loss of privilege. Loss of privilege, okay? So a privilege is an opportunity for students to learn to be responsible when acting autonomously. When I say loss of privilege, this is not something that should be a privilege that's lost forever. The student should be able to have an opportunity to actually try again. And so here would be an example of that. A student is dangerously waving scissors around in the air during your art class. A logical consequence would be a loss of privilege. We've already gone over the expectations when it comes to using specific tools in the art classroom, especially when it comes to safety. Yet you chose to wave around your scissors in the air. As a result, you will lose the privilege of being able to use scissors. So as the teacher, I am removing the scissors from you. Do we understand? Does that mean Johnny gets his scissors removed from him for the rest of the school year? No, that's not what I'm saying, because when we think about loss of privilege, students should have the opportunity to try again to regain that. However, in that particular instance, you were first clear with your expectation. The student chose not to meet it. So now you're telling them, hey, scissors gone for you, buddy. You can try again another time. Do we understand? Are we clear? What's number 2? We said number 1 was reparation. What was the second one? Let's recap that in the chat for those who just joined in. Let's give them number 2 in the chat. Thank you. Loss of privilege. Cool. So if we're ready for the third one, before I move into talking about ultimately why logical consequences aren't enough, I would love it if you would give me some hearts on the screen for number 3. If we're ready. Give me some hearts on the screen. That song right there, you would have thought I was a kindergarten teacher. You would have thought I was a kindergarten teacher with that little tune that I just sang for y'all for free. I gave that to y'all for free. You get a message and you get some music. Thank you for the hearts, Lynn, but I just mean, can you tap, 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 tap? That gives me hearts. Thank y'all. Okay. Awesome. Jenna gave me some hearts. Naomi gave me some hearts. Thanks, Emily, for following. Okay, y'all. So the third one, number 3. Ready? Number 3 is, drum roll, space and time. Space and time. Okay? So what do I mean by that? So when we're thinking about space and time, this allows for movement to a designated space in the classroom for a student to simply calm down and focus and refocus. Now, I kind of have a little bit of mixed opinions when it comes to calm down corners, because sometimes I see them used very, very, very ineffectively, but you do not have to have a calm down corner here, right? Like I remember in my classroom, times where I gave space and time to students, it didn't necessarily mean that I had this designated corner where little Johnny would go and snuggle up with blankets and a pillow and read until he could come back to the group. Like I didn't really have that, right? A space and time might mean like you're temporarily going to go to this buddy classroom for about 5 minutes until you can woo-saw yourself and return back to my space. You understand? I also see this really go wrong when like students are spending 10, 20, 30 plus minutes in a calm down corner. The purpose is for kids to regroup and come back so they can learn. If they're just chilling out in the back and not engaged in the lesson for 10 plus minutes, that's not giving them an opportunity to learn, right? We're teachers so that kids can learn. And so we don't want them missing out on instructional time for an extended opportunity just because you as the adult want a little of a break sometimes. Like we need to make sure that we are using it in an appropriate time limit. However, this should be a short break that results in the student rejoining the rest of the class. Emphasis on the short break. Take that with you. Short break. Okay? So the goal is for the student to be able to regulate their emotions, which is something like you have to teach them to do, right? And an example of this might be, hey, you had a student and they purposefully kicked another student under the table at lunch, right? A logical consequence for space and time in that particular moment would be, well, move the student temporarily to a separate table for a solo lunch, right? And then they get that opportunity to rejoin in at a different time. So now that I've given you the third one, we went over reparation. We've gone over loss and privilege. Number 3 was what? Who was with me? Because now we're getting to like the best part, which is I've shared all this with you. Why is it that these logical consequences aren't enough and what you actually need instead? Space and time, time and space. Y'all got it. So here's the juicy part. You know, the juicy part is that at the end of the day, simply implementing logical consequences aren't enough. So here's the reasons why I say that. When we think about logical consequences in our classroom, I believe that they have a limited effectiveness. Okay? So while logical consequences can be effective in certain situations, they may not always be sufficient in changing a student's behavior. And I know a lot of you said you like two in the chat earlier, meaning that this is new to you. Learning about logical consequences is new to you. And you will find too, like if you were to take this and implement in your classroom tomorrow, that sure you might see some success, but it's not long-term behavior changing success, right? And so ultimately, they're not sufficient in changing a student's behavior. Students may become accustomed to these types of logical consequences and no longer find them to be a deterrent for their disruptive behaviors. In addition to that, some students might not even really care about the consequences logical consequences, especially if they're not even invested in the learning process to begin with, right? So that's the first thing that I will say as to why I believe logical consequences on their own aren't enough. The second thing that I will say is that there is a lack of flexibility. So as you're thinking about logical consequences, they're often predetermined and they don't really take into account the specific circumstances of like a unique situation that might be happening in your classroom. And this too can limit their effectiveness as a consequence. Like it may not actually fit the infraction of the student, or it might be too harsh for the particular situation, or what have you, or not appropriate enough. So that is why I believe that there's a lack of flexibility when it comes to logical consequences. And then, in addition to that, sometimes they prove to be inadequate for more complex behavior issues. So when you think about students who might have some more complex behavior issues, it actually requires a more comprehensive approach beyond logical consequences alone, right? When we think about differentiation, especially on the academic side, that applies to behavior as well. So there's particular students who may need support from like outside professionals, like your school counselor might need to be involved in order to best support a student. There could be further underlying issues that are ultimately contributing to a student's behavior. So those are some reasons as to why, like, I feel that a logical consequence approach isn't enough on its own. And so that is why I actually like to teach teachers and coach them through setting up their own accountability protocol within their classroom. Because how many times have you like referred a student out or asked for admin support, and you find the student in the admin's office eating donuts and coming back with a lollipop? Like, that's not an effective consequence, right? So we really, as teachers, and this is what I did too, I developed my own accountability protocol so that I was able to ensure that an appropriate consequence was being given based on the behavior from a particular student. So what you need to do instead is develop this accountability protocol so that you have a range of consequences that can actually be tailored to fit the severity and the context of the specific behavior from the student. And then also, having this accountability protocol allows for you to develop this set framework that's aligned to like your core values in your classroom culture that will help you to address behavior and provide additional supports and interventions that might be necessary. So that is what you need to do instead. And that is one of several things that I coach teachers to create when I teach them my manage your class method. So what I want to share with you tonight actually is from one particular teacher who I was supporting. And a lot of people are like, oh, I see you talking about the manage your class method, but will that work for me? Will that work for me? Will that work for me? I teach specials. I only teach this class. I only teach that class. Will this work for me? I only see kids twice a week. Well, there's a particular teacher that I worked with this time last year. And before learning the manage your class method, this is like what was happening in her classroom. And I want you to think about this. Like, do you resonate with this? Okay. Because once I share this story with you, I'm opening it up for questions. So I want to be able to answer each and every one of your questions. So before learning the manage your class method, this teacher was currently teaching 12 different classes 2 times per week. Okay. She found it overwhelmingly difficult to keep her students on task, to reduce distractions, and she overall felt like she wasn't accomplishing her lessons. Do you ever feel like that? Like you just can't even teach, you can't even get through a lesson because of disruptive behaviors, right? So this technology teacher who was teaching 12 different classes 2 times per week, between the disrespect amongst her students and a seeming lack of care and low motivation for not only herself, but the students at that point of year, because remember, this was 1 year ago that I was working with her. So around this time, spring, it felt hopeless for her. These are her words exactly that she shared with me. Because every single teacher who I work with, they have to submit an application. And this is what she was telling me in her application. She felt hopeless, which is horrible. That's a horrible way to feel. She dealt with all the behaviors from talking while she was giving directions to blatant in her face disrespect. Her students were even cursing and students were fighting her because she specifically was serving some of the middle school grade levels. And she knew that she couldn't change everything in her 2 days a week that she had with her students, but she did want to feel more confident in her skills in the classroom. So I'm going to pause right there. Based on everything that I've shared with you, I want you to simply comment yes in the chat if you can resonate with Kathleen's struggle, if you've been there, if you also felt the way she was feeling, overwhelmed, couldn't even get through a lesson, hard to keep your students on task, several distractions while you're teaching, feeling hopeless, dealing with behaviors from disrespect to even cursing and fighting. Does this resonate with anyone? Have you also felt the same way? Lynn says yes. Jenna says yes. Allie says yes. Jackie says yes. So you relate to exactly how Kathleen was feeling. You're not alone, okay? Because I specifically want to make this an opportunity where I can actually share with you exactly what she had to say after we worked together, right? To address these issues. I want you to specifically listen, okay, to what it is that she had to say. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this for you, and I want you listening very carefully because a lot of you feel like there's no hope for you. Oh, school's about to be out this summer. There's no hope. Let's not. So, I'm going to share with you what she had to say.
Like, although like it is worth every penny. As a first year teacher, I make very little, and I was like very willing to be like, okay.
So after she was coaching with me, she was like, this was worth every penny. I want to specifically show you even what she came up with. She sent me this. So let me flip my camera. So right here, this is what she sent to me. Okay. I'm going to share my screen for those wonderful folks who are on YouTube. Take a look here. Okay. This is what she came up with. This is what she created, her technology procedures, right? She sent me this after we were done working together. The very next day, she made this in her classroom. You see that? She made this, okay? This is a coaching technology teacher success story. This could be you. She had her procedures ready to rock and roll. Then what happened? Okay. After that, what did she say? She also showed me, hey, these are the rules that I made. Boom. The next day, right? She made these particular rules in her classroom. You can see this message from me that I sent to her. OMG, this is so awesome. I just read your feedback and I love that things are going well for you. So I'm sure you're wondering, what was her feedback? Thank you for asking. I would love to share that with you. Here's what she said. What are some of the results you have had in your classroom with your students after working with Tyranny? That's me. Hi, I'm Tyranny. She said, after setting up the exact rules and procedures my students would be following, I also introduced the rewards and consequences. I have already full classes motivated to be on their best behavior and hold each other accountable for upholding the rules and procedures. When I have to use my sequence of 5 consequences, that's her accountability protocol I was telling you about that we created together, I have not gotten past consequence 2. Is that amazing? Usually I cannot make it through half of my lesson. The time that I have with my classes, and now my students all seem ready to participate. And I understand that if we can work together on these rules and consequences, the rewards will be great. And we can actually have more fun and an engaging time in class. I asked her, how would you rate your overall satisfaction during the coaching session? Well, she said 10. Perfect 10. Very satisfied. So one thing about me, I'm going to come with receipts. And this is exactly what a teacher was able to accomplish the very next day in her classroom after working with me. That particular feedback that she shared and the results that she was able to have, how she used to run through her consequences and see no change in behavior, to now after building out her accountability protocol with me, after working through the manager class method, she only had to get to the consequence, the second one, and then the behavior stopped. That's a transformation. And mind you, she was only seeing these students twice a week because she taught 12 classes as a technology teacher. So with that said, you may have been feeling exactly like Kathleen was feeling, but you can see that it's possible for you to change things for yourself. And this should have given you hope. And so with that said, what I want to do is I simply want to share with you, if you're interested in learning about the Manage Your Class method, then I invite you to click the link in my bio, or if you're watching on YouTube, click the link in the description box. And you can learn more about the Manage Your Class method in the Manage Your Class Academy. Our summer 2023 intensive is actually happening next month. And there's another session that is happening also in August. So you can choose which one you would like to do. And literally over the span of 2.5 hours with us working together, you will be able to leave with not only your accountability protocol customized to your classroom, but also the other 8 critical components that I will work in partnership with you to build out so that you can implement it on week 1, day 1 in your classroom. And I am so excited to be able to offer you that invitation to join me and apply for the program if it's of interest of you. All of the details about it are listed on the website, so I'm not going to walk through those, but you can read through. You can hear exactly from Kathleen. You can see a little video clip of us in her coaching session, and you can determine if this is a good fit for you. I want to open it up for questions because I did promise that I would answer questions. and I am a woman of my word. So, what questions do you have for me about what we have discussed tonight or anything in general? I would be happy to answer those for you over the next few minutes. What questions do you have? I'm going to scroll up because I saw some questions earlier. So, let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Do I have any questions up here? What's your biggest tip for new teachers? To come in week one, day one, ready to work with your students. And that means you are prepared to create a learning environment that's conducive to supporting students' academic achievement. And when we don't prioritize our classroom management and culture from week one, day one, then we're not creating a learning environment that's conducive to support our students' academic success, which is ultimately widening the opportunity gap for them and not providing equitable outcomes. And considering that my experience has always specifically been in Title I communities, serving beautiful Black and Brown children like myself, who unfortunately are at the mercies of the systemic injustices set up around them that is trying to prevent them from receiving the quality education they deserve. It's not even an option or something that's negotiable for you to not create a learning environment that supports student academic success. So that's why it is so important to prioritize your classroom management and culture from the beginning and not just spend your time and attention on developing a cute looking classroom because of something that you saw on Pinterest or on TikTok or on Instagram, but you're keeping the main thing, and then you can make it cute later. So that's the truth on that part. What other questions do you have? Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So that means that I'm just going to go ahead and hop off. But before I do, again, want to invite you to check out the Manage Your Class Academy. Doors do close next week. And it is first come, first serve. So once all the spots are gone, they're gone. One date in June is already gone. You are welcome, Jackie. I will be live again on Thursday this week, same time, and I hope to see you there. Take care. Peace.